Okay, welcome to the Sunday Sit, friends. Hello to you from Vienna. I'm I haven't even been outside yet today. It's 6 p.m. here, but it's extremely hot, and it reminds me of when during the summer at the monastery, it would get sweltering up on the mountain, and we had all these horrible um, means of cooling the zendo. We had somebody installed a hose on the top of the zendo on the roof line and punctured it. So there's a hose, a garden hose, and then holes in it. And they would turn on the hose and it would sprinkle water down the building, the shingles of the building on the roof in order to try and like keep it cool. It was not ecologically very good because like California was always in a water crisis and it didn't really cool the zendo down, and we had bad loud fans that didn't work. And anyways, I remember my teacher said once that I don't know how serious he was with this, but he said that meditation got started in India because it was too hot to do anything but sit in the shade on a cool rock and do absolutely nothing. So today we are, metaphorically speaking, and almost literally in my case, sitting on a cool rock in the shade and doing nothing. So you are in a room that is hopefully not heavily trafficked right now and won't be heavily trafficked for the next hour while we do our sits. So it's just you and whoever else is participating in our sit, sitting in a quiet room. Um, your phone is hopefully not anywhere near. You can take it out of the room or turn it off, so there's no distractions. It's okay if there's noise that you can't stop, noise from outside. Um, Include and allow is what a meditation teacher once said about these background noises when you're sitting. They're not a hindrance to your practice, they're part of it. Um, and you're sitting down on your cushion. You can just take a pillow, fold it in half, a couple pillows, fold it in half. You can be sitting on a chair, sitting on the edge of the chair, as opposed to your back being against it, feet flat on the ground. But let's assume that you're sitting with your legs crossed. Um, your hips are elevated, your knees are touching the ground. So you've got a solid sitting position. And as I'm talking and kind of orienting us to the form of the practice, you can start to bring your attention down from up here in the head down into the body. Take a few deep breaths. Inhale, the exhale, soft, deep, intentional, but not strained breaths. Like I said, your knees are touching the ground. If your knees can't touch the ground, your hips are stiff, or your knees are stiff, or your uh, hamstrings are tight. You can take a few folded towels and put them underneath your knees until they're firmly under there, and you're touching the towels are touching the ground. Your knees are on top of the towels and you're firmly secured that way. But you want to try and have it so that your hips are pivoted and your knees touch the ground, right? This is a solid sitting position, and you want to be solid as opposed to having your knees off the ground. So your spine is straight, you're sitting up straight. Your nose and your diaphragm, or your belly, are parallel. So you're not leaning too far forward. You're not kind of slouched and sitting back. You're sitting up straight. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. And your tongue lightly touching the roof of your mouth. And your mouth is closed. Very important to breathe through your nose and not through your mouth for a variety of reasons. If you can. You can just bring your attention down into your body. And then bring your attention into this activity of breathing. And you put the attention into the exhale. And you do the exhale completely. And then, as it turns out, the exhale ends. And there's a stop and a pause and a space and a gap. And then from that gap, the inhale arises. And if the exhale is done completely, then the inhale happens naturally. Then the inhale comes to its natural conclusion. You reach the peak of the inhale, and then the exhale happens. And all we're going to be doing for the next 25 minutes, then we'll do a 8-minute break, silent meditative break, stretch your legs, etc. And then we'll come back and we'll do another 25-minute sit. And all we'll be doing during that time is gently and with focus and sincerity, bringing the attention completely into this activity of posture and breath. So throughout the sit, you can readjust your posture, right? Because sometimes you slouch a little bit, or your posture loses conscious, how can I put it? Your posture slackens, so you can bring your mind back into your posture and firm it up again and sit up straight. And your mind will wander from the breath, from the activity of exhale and inhale. And when that happens, sooner or later you'll realize it. And then you can bring your attention back into that activity of breathing. So instead of a more profound and amazing practice filled with fireworks, I think for me, the sitting gets sort of subtler and subtler, and at a more micro level. And sooner my attention returns to the breath, and I realize you can sort of see the mind arising. Seeing the mind is the translation of session, which is a Zen 7-day retreat, seeing the mind. So as you're sitting here doing nothing, all kinds of thoughts and feelings are going to arise, stuff you've been thinking about all week, but you weren't really aware of, emotions, discomfort, physical discomfort, pain, hurt, frustration, impatience, all these things I find arise every time in a sit. And the practice is, oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. Like, there's an awareness that holds all this stuff that arises and doesn't cling to it and doesn't try and push it away, but just sees, lets it arise and lets it disappear, lets it arise and lets it disappear. And the practice is to do posture and breath. Okay. You can, in the Zen tradition, we keep our eyes open with a soft gaze. So it's about about 3 feet in front of you. On the ground, you've got a soft gaze meaning you're activating your peripheral vision, so you don't have to focus in on the tile or the carpet or whatever. You can, the Zen tradition is to hold a mudra, which is you've got your right hand here and your left hand on top of it, and you're lining up these knuckles right here with your thumbs lightly touching, and then you put this at your hara or your diaphragm. That's great if you want to do that. You can also right hand, left hand. Right hand takes the left thumb, gently holding it like this. Try and get you to see this, kind of like this. And that's a hara that you can hold at your diaphragm or belly button area. Or you can just take your hands and put them flat on your thighs. When I've been sitting alone lately, I've been doing more of that. And your legs are crossed either in a Burmese position, which is just, I've got, like, for example, right now I've got my left foot underneath my right thigh, and my right foot is kind of tucked into my the knee calf area on my left thigh. You can put your right foot up on your right thigh. This is the half lotus position. Or you can put your left foot up and your right foot up on the opposing thighs. That's the full lotus position. But whatever you're comfortable with, and you can get through a sit without torturing yourself. That's what you want to do. You want to take the firmest, most solid position that you can without it being a distraction for physical reasons. Okay. So we'll start the sit now, and we'll go for 25 minutes. I'll start the sit with my handy little bell here. We'll start the sit with 3 rings, and we'll end the sit with 1 ring. I recommend definitely turn away from the computer. I'll turn to my side here so I won't be facing the computer. Okay, let's do instead of a 7 minute, I think we can do a 5 minute, what we call a rest Kenyan, which is a quiet meditative break. So you use the bathroom if you need to, stretch your legs, then come back to your cushion. So we'll start our second sit now. So you can settle back into your cross-legged position. We'll sit for 25 minutes. Change the cross of your leg. So if your right leg was up on your left thigh, now your left thigh is up on your left leg is up on your right. Left foot is up on your right thigh. Just change the cross of your legs. Otherwise, your body starts to sort of contort if you gets imbalanced. It's bad for your hips. So always change the cross of your legs with each sit as much as you can. When my left foot is up on my right thigh, it oftentimes goes to sleep, and that's just the deal. And so that'll be usually the case with your like non-dominant foot. So I'm right-handed, so my right foot is fine on my left thigh, but when my left foot is up on my right thigh, then it gets frozen, but there it is. Settle back into your seated position. Upright, straight back, but not rigid. Soft gaze. And again, when thoughts arise and the mind starts working and you get distracted or emotional, that's okay. Just breathe into it and turn it all into breath. This cyclic activity of this inhale and this exhale. Just becoming breath, becoming that breath, whole body and the whole mind. Breathing deeply but not exaggeratedly in, out. It's cyclic activity of the inhale and the exhale. Thank you. Concludes our 2 sits. I'll talk a little bit for those of you who want to stick around. And if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments section here. Looks like somebody's already asked a question and somebody's already answered it. Great. Yeah, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, really they're just prompts to get us all contemplating practice, not really, you know, within every question is the answer. I was taught that in koan practice in Zen. So when you float a question, you're already giving us the answer, as it were. So if you want to float any questions about practice or meditation while I'm yakking here for a few minutes, great. What is Zen? What is it? My mentor told me that Zen is connection, which I really liked that definition. But what does that mean? Well, when we sit here and we do sitting practice, what my teacher called Anapana Zen. So apparently there's a sutra or a Buddhist text called the Anapana Sutra, and it has to do with sitting or breathing. And when we do this practice of just sitting and breathing, we're manifesting connection, literally manifesting connection. I mean, in the most basic way. We're taking in oxygen, right? Like there's no separation between us and our environment. We're taking in that oxygen and inhaling, and then we're exhaling carbon dioxide and other inner gases. And I'm sure there's this scientific paper out there on it. So we're exchanging with the world. There's a literal exchange happening. There's a connection happening. And I found when I do the sitting more completely with less anxiety and aggravation, really it's just practice, Zen practice, and being a little bit more sincere or focused with my sits. Sometimes I can do it better than other times, but as I talked about earlier, sort of the impulse to think and to engage in habitual thought patterns and habits. When I sit, it's time to not do that and instead turn all that energy into breath, right? More and more breath, right? And then I find sooner or later a connection, or I manifest a connection with my surroundings. And we could call this self-forgetting or self-emptying, is how I heard a Christian mystic talk about it recently. You're doing something, and when you do that thing, you put yourself into the activity, the self disappears. And that's the connection that we're manifesting. I mean, the example my teacher always used to give was when your granddaughter or grandson runs into the room, you're not thinking at all. You just embrace them completely. You lose yourself completely in that activity. That's total connection. Or when you're doing a sport that you're really good at, you shooting the basketball, like you're not thinking, you're just doing the activity. So I'm just going to read you a few things here from a book that my teacher wrote called Manifesting Zen. It's a little esoteric, this book. It's a collection of his texts. I'm going to offer you this, a couple lines from this, couple paragraphs from this, because I think in terms of of Anapana Zen or breath Zen, breath practice. This is kind of an interesting approach to it or perspective on it. And it's going to sound almost he's a simpleton because he's describing breath, and it's like, but it's interesting, and we'll get to the interesting part. Okay, he says, try inhaling. You ever done that before? Try inhaling. What you'll find is that when you breathe in, you'll reach an extreme point of the inhalation at which there is no need to breathe in any longer. And from there, you'll begin to exhale. And when you reach this extreme point of the extreme point of the inhalation, you'll begin the exhalation. And when you fully exhale, you'll eventually reach the extreme point of the exhalation. And when you reach this extreme point of the exhalation, then out of that, the inhalation will emerge again. You can imagine what do they call that on the internet? ASMR, when somebody has a calm voice and they're saying calming things and you just fall asleep. That's what it was like when my teacher used to talk like this during our retreats. But he's going into interesting territory. He says, this activity of breathing engages in inhaling and exhaling without will, without desire, which is an interesting fact that we've been breathing. We've been breathing since the beginning of our life without will or desire. This activity is happening. This connection is happening. The inhale and the exhale. And it's also happening, this connection, through our sense gates. All the in the fingertips. We're receiving, processing, interacting with the world, connecting with our surroundings, giving to and receiving from our surroundings willlessly. So he says, you might have the thought, oh, I must breathe here. But this thought arises from thinking about your breathing. But when you fully breathe, this thought does not emerge. You are just continuing to breathe without will and without desire. So fundamentally, or we might say originally, the breath is something that is emerging without any thought, without any will, without any desire. He goes on to say, when we reach the extreme point of the inhalation and the exhalation split apart, right? So he's been giving a long, basic description of breath as though to an alien who doesn't have lungs, right? Like, this is breathing. And then he says, oh, this is interesting. There's this point when the inhalation and the exhalation split apart, okay? And he says, they split apart and a space emerges there. Now, if a space Okay, so this is the point I was getting to, and it's hard to grok this. So this has been a Dharma talk he was giving about the Dharma activity or the activity of the universe, how things arise. And he's made the point earlier in the talk that the activity that gives rise to the whole cosmos is like replicated, if you will, or cloned to a T in the activity of breathing, this giving and receiving, or this total exhalation and total inhalation, this back and forth, or this interplay between opposites. And he pauses at the point where the exhale ends and the inhale begins. And he says that's a point where no breathing is happening, right? Like you're not exhaling and you're not inhaling. Where does the exhale end? Where does the inhale begin? There's like a space there. And his teaching is that everything arises in that space. The whole cosmos arises in that space. That space is the seed of the universe. It's the shape of human consciousness. It's the form of our bodies. How he puts it is, the space emerges as the five skandhas. And the five skandhas, of course, are the five ingredients or attributes that Buddhism attributes to a self. So I kind of like, he says, I like his definition of this guy. It says it's form, which is like the body, rupa, form, sensations, perceptions, psychological patterns, and consciousness. So it's an interesting teaching. And it's a reminder to me, when I was reading this today, it was a reminder to me of how like deep you can go into your breath and into this anapana breathing practice, zazen, just sitting, right? Like the breath is very deep. This is not like just an aerobic exercise that we're doing. My teacher is saying that the activity that gives rise to the cosmos, this activity, he used to call it the mutually opposing but complementary activities of plus, minus, this, that, here, there, up, down, male, female, right, left, good, bad, self, other. The place where they meet and separate, that's the seed of the universe. So you can take that into your sitting. It helps me to not get distracted by ideas. Somebody asked me the other day, can I just sit and not have enlightenment or kensho or satori because nothing's happening when I sit? I'm not getting enlightened. Is it okay if I just keep sitting and I'm not having an enlightenment experience? Well, the sitting is the enlightenment experience, and teaching like this helps me take the breath really seriously, and that's all we're doing when we sit like this for an hour together. We're just manifesting that inhale and the exhale and the space in between together. Okay, let's take a quick look at these questions here because I've taken a lot of your time. My experiences in meditation, shikantaza, have become consistently mystical in nature. I'm not sure what to make of it. Any advice? I'm not sure what you mean by mystical. I mean, you could say that your experiences are becoming consistently mystical, or they're becoming consistently dark and depressing and strange, or they're just banal and you're falling asleep. But the practice is always the same. You might be getting, I don't know what to make of that. I mean, I think you just keep doing your practice. You just keep doing your practice. Don't get distracted by mystical experiences, but you don't. Maybe there something's happening that's the fruit of your practice. But if you take it too seriously or get stuck on it, you might find yourself 20 years from now, like still trying to have those same experiences. So what I would say is pay it forward instead of, it's like money it's like your practice, you've been investing, and now you're getting good dividends. Don't spend the dividends, just keep investing it back into the practice, invest the energy, invest the insights, invest the gifts that the practice gives you back into the practice. It could be, in Buddhism, typically they call the kinds of experiences like this. It can be Mara, which is a kind of very convincing mental activity. But whether it's good experiences that you have on the cushion, bad experiences that you have on the cushion, mystical experiences, banal experiences, try and invest it back into the practice. Very clear practice of just sitting and breathing. And shikantaza, you said here, shikantaza, so just sitting. I hope that makes sense. I mean, it's a very good question. I hope that was a decent answer. I've heard you say that you found the perennial philosophy empty of practicality. Huh. However, isn't this merely a view on the world's major religions? I mean, couldn't a Buddhist be a perennialist? That's a topic for a whole video. And I'm not sure if I ever said I found the perennial philosophy empty of practicality. Although that does sound like something I might say. I think I'm going to save that one for maybe a video. My understanding of the perennial philosophy is, I know it through Aldous Huxley and Joseph Campbell, and I think the thinking is all the world's religions and practices, basically, when you get down to it, point towards the same thing. And I think that I may have poo-pooed that at some point, but I essentially actually think that that's probably true. So I'm going to dodge your question that way. Yeah. I'm talking of, okay. Okay, so our friend here is saying, I'm talking about being bodily elsewhere in Buddha fields in an ineffable universe, not hallucinations. It's not unpleasant or worrying, just looking for insight here. Then someone else says, Dogen seems to just say, ignore that. I mean, that's what my teacher would have said. Don't take it too seriously, because it can take you out of the present moment and out of the sit and out of your practice to get to a point where you're asking a question about it. It's already taken up oxygen in your practice. I would say just drop it and keep practicing. It's a terrible answer. Nobody ever likes that answer. It's a terrible answer. I'm not in your head and I'm not experiencing your Buddha fields. I mean, I'm not even sure what that means, to be honest. Buddha fields in an ineffable universe. I'm not sure what that means. And, I mean, you gotta, you're on your own in an experience like that. And the only thing that I can say is, make sure your butt is on the cushion and you're in your body, right? And then you're rooted in your body and doing your practice in your body, in your lungs, on your butt, not anywhere in your head. Oxygen in, oxygen out, and then the sky's the limit for your practice. Hope that makes sense, and I hope that's helpful. Okay, guys, I'm going to go take a cold shower because it's gotten to be about 100 degrees in my apartment. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. Ciao.